Tobias's lineage. Tobias's father, Elfangor. Nothing. It doesn't lead to anything. There's no need for it to be there, really. It doesn't... Take the whole, oh, Elfangor's my father bit out of the Animal storyline, and what changes? That's 33 books at least of this being a subplot, something important here, and then it just has no effect on the rest of the series. Take out the fact that Tobias is Elfangor's son, and what changes? I was wrong, and I'm sorry. It takes a lot to admit that you're wrong, that you made a mistake, that you did the wrong thing, that you misrepresented something or somebody. But I stand up tall now and tell you that I was a dipstick. I was a walloper, I was a cretinous oaf, and I'm balding. It's sad to say, but in my previous video, I, Adam, was mistaken. And I put Tobias's lineage as the #1 dropped plotline of the Animorphs series. And oh, what a silly bugger. For I was mistaken. I've been doing some research lately for an analysis, and I came across one paragraph in the Andalite Chronicles that threw me through the biggest goddamn loop you've ever seen. This is the paragraph I'm talking about. I saw the tiny line that was my son flow off through time. I saw pain and hardship and loneliness for him. But then, like a distant nova, I saw a flash of light, far at the edge of a still uncertain future. Across the galaxy my brother's line reached to join with my son's, and 4 other bright, shining timelines formed together with those 2. I knew I was watching something incredible and important, and I knew this union of 6 timelines, 1 Andalite and 5 humans, was the entire point of the Elmists' non-interference. I read this line during research for my next analysis video, and I had to stop myself and completely change course of the research I was doing at the time and go back to my ideas about this dropped plot line that is Tobias Snow. The Tobias lineage, the Tobias ancestral thing, was it a dropped plot line? And I just need to basically correct myself to a degree, not wholly, to a degree. So in that dropped plotlines video, I basically stated that there was no point to the Tobias lineage plotline, that it had no effect on the series despite it running from 1 to 33 roughly. So a big chunk of the series had this subplot going on, and I, for whatever reason, thought that there was no purpose to it. But having read that line from the Andalite Chronicles, I can now tell you that I was wrong, that there was a purpose behind the plotline, and it goes like this. So when Elfangor is dragged back into the Andalite-Yerk War by the Elmist, which is where that quote we read comes from, he saw the thread of his son go on through time, forward in time, and he sees it connect with his brother Aximili, and those 2 lines connect, and then 4 other human lines connect as well, and he sees that something important is going to come from those threads. So what happens in book 1, The Invasion, / the Andalite Chronicles, the end of the Andalite Chronicles, is he comes down to Earth in his damaged fighter and he's about to die. And who does he see in front of him? His son. It takes him a moment, but he probably sees himself and Lauren in Tobias. He knows that Axe was on the ship and he saw the dome ship the top part of the dome where only Axe is, crash into Earth. So he knows that Axe is on this planet. He's now about to die, and he can see his son in front of him, as well as 4 other humans. Those 4 other lines. Why is Tobias's lineage important? It's because Tobias is there with those 4 other people, Elfangor immediately recognises this is the group that is going to be important in the future. Which is why in book 1 he thinks for a moment and says, perhaps, and then gives the Animorphs the blue box. Would he have broken the law of Sero's kindness if he didn't see Tobias there and know that that's Tobias and know that Tobias would have a role going down into the future? Why wouldn't he give Tobias and that group the most important piece of technology that he had on board his ship before his own demise? So yes, I was wrong. The Tobias lineage is important. And that's the role it plays. Without Tobias being Elfangor's son, the Animorphs would probably not exist, because Elfangor probably wouldn't have been tempted to break the law of Sero's kindness, because if he just saw 5 random kids in front of him, he wouldn't know who they were. But because Tobias was there, and he knew that Axe had just crash landed on the planet, he thought, that must be it. And you could argue that even if he hadn't recognised Tobias, that simply the fact that he knew Axe crash landed there, maybe he would have done that, but I think Tobias was necessary for that to occur as it did. Why am I not going to fully concede this point? Why am I going to still say that there's an element of a dropped plot line here? I'll tell you, right? So book 1 is where we're introduced to Tobias and all that. Where do we find out this information, that the reason Elfangor gave this power to the Animorphs was down to Tobias's lineage or whatever? Where do we learn that? Around here. So Andalite Chronicles came out the same month as book 13, The Change. So that's when we learn that. So from book 1 to book 13, that's where that line should have stopped. That's when we say, right, we figured out the mystery. That is why Elfangor gave the secret. That's why Tobias's lineage is important. Why do I still think there's an element of a dropped plotline here? Because in 23 we revisit it. And this is where Tobias finds out that Elfangor is his dad. The big problem here is that surely 23 should come before we see Elfangor's vision of the threads. It just seems to be in the wrong order. It's like, I tried to think of a good example in my head earlier, but the closest I could get is Professor Snape from Harry Potter. So, what am I doing here? It's like if we saw that scene where, he has his redemption thing and Harry sees Professor Snape's memories and sees how he protected his mother. It's like if we saw that scene before the scene where Snape kills Dumbledore. It just loses the effect, the intended effect, and it seems completely out of order. That's sort of what's going on here. Tobias learning that Elfangor was his father should surely have happened before we saw why it was relevant, because then it just makes it seem as if it was like more was to come from it. And I think this is why I was mistaken in the first place, because, and you throw in book 33 in there as well. I've already mentioned 33 being the end of this little cycle, but you remember in book 33 Tobias was having these images from Elfangor's memory, and it was this Utsum thing that we never heard from again. This is why I believe I put the Tobias lineage, Tobias Snow, as my number 1 drop plot line, because it felt like they were trying to put more into it. It felt like there was more than just this threads thing that I'd previously completely forgotten about. Yeah, books 23 and 33 feel like they're trying to put more into this lineage thing, but then nothing ever comes of it. It does make you wonder what the point of it being, the whole Tobias finding out the Elfangor is his father thing. What was the point of that? Was it just for some form of closure? That we couldn't bear to have Tobias not know that, so we just had to at some point say, okay, Tobias, there's the knowledge, there, you can have that. you're sorted. Because other than that, it just feels like it's trying to lead somewhere, but it never gets somewhere. That's why I consider it a dropped plotline, and why I still do, to an extent, consider it a dropped plotline, because they dangled another carrot in front of us regarding Tobias's lineage, but never delivered anything. But yeah, I take it back. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I am basically Hitler. Sorry, okay? I will try harder next time. I'm sorry if it's caused any, if it's caused any ruptures in your family lives, if your doctor has marked you as terminally buggered because of what I said, if you can't just go on anymore, if what I said has convinced you that life is not worth living, that things would be better if you'd just been born a cantaloupe. I am sorry. Lila, you're sorry too. See how sorry she is? That's a sorry-ass cat. I was half wrong. But yeah, it did matter. The whole Tobias Lineage thing did matter. I just think they buggered up the order of things. Yeah, 23 does lose its effect, doesn't it? Because if you take out the Andalite Chronicles, get rid of that, you never learn that Tobias is Andalite Alfangor's son until 23, where it would assumedly have more of an effect. And then if you read the Andalite Chronicles after that, you suddenly get that moment of, oh my god, so it does make sense. Yeah, so it should have been in that order, but it wasn't, and that's what ruined the effect. Anyway, that's enough of me rabbiting on. If I do something and then further down the line I think, oh actually, I got that wrong, I'm going to do this sort of video because it only makes sense. The whole point of this channel is to inform you about Animorphs and to give you my subjective opinions. If something changes down the line, then I need to update that. So there you go. I move it down to number 3 on the Dropped Plotlines list, and numbers 2 and 3 move upwards a step. I forget which ones were which, but yeah, there you go. Mark this as an addendum to the Dropped Plotlines video. And I'll tell you what, there is a lot to discuss about Tobias, but that's for the future. There is a lot to discuss about this guy. Christ, it's going to be a fun analysis when I get to him. Yeah, so it's time for us all to say bugger off. So thank you very much for watching. I shall see you next time, where hopefully it won't be another I made a mistake video. So thank you very much for watching. I shall see you somewhere else in the Animorphs universe. Ta-ra.